Buddy, today I'm going to be showing you how to do T2 active. And for the T2 active strat, it is significantly faster than doing idle. It ranges anywhere from 2 to 6 times faster, which is the highest uh, difference between idle and active. And it's a milestone swapping strategy. So you swap milestones, um, allowing you to get um, like faster results. And the milestone strategy is fairly simple. You start out with unlocking layers, and then as the layers build up, allowing Q3 to make Q2 bigger and Q2 making Q1 bigger, it will give you more um, power in the long run. Now, Q will always be bigger than R, and because of that, you will never put milestones into R exponent at first. And this is only because um, you there's no reason to put milestones into the lower number because you just don't get as much out of it. You will end up doing it when you max out the Q1 exponent later on, but that's everything at E100 and farther, and I'll show you that in a moment. But for the active, what we'll do is we will start out in Q1 exponent at this stage because when you have Q3, you actually can't purchase Q3 fairly quickly or Q4. And that's because um, you need to recover, obviously. So at the start, we'll start out with Q1 exponent, allowing us to get there faster. And then as soon as we're able to purchase Q3 and R3, and R3 is at um, the same cost, just a little bit more expensive. When we're able to purchase that, then we'll go ahead and start doing our major milestone swapping. So let's go ahead and get started with that. At first, this does work with only one milestone, by the way. It's the same thing, just when you do one milestone, you will only get the Q4 and you will not get R1. Not at first. So now we're getting layers. And now we'll go ahead and swap into Q1. And you see we got a large spike there. We're just at E25 and now we're up at E30. And we'll go ahead and swap back now. And at this point, for one milestone, you would purchase R3 and not Q1. So you'd purchase a second milestone. But because we don't have enough currency to purchase the R4 and Q4, then we're not going to get them yet. We're just going to keep going into both. And Q will always be larger than R, and that's why we're going to be only focusing on the Q exponent. And so multipliers will range anywhere from 100 to 10,000, depending on if you're idle or active. And a good way to check that is just to use the sim, and you can always check that in the guide. Both of which will be in the description down below. And you just want to keep swapping. You want to spend most of your time in layers and then occasionally be swapping to exponent for a little bit just to get that boost in row and then swap back. And you will see progress slow when you purchase or when you swap back to layers, and that's okay. That's expected because you don't have the boost from the exponents. Just make sure when you have one milestone that you're alternating between Q and R. Just keep swapping between the two so you get as much um, out of both of those milestones as possible. And this gets significantly stronger the more milestones you have. Just right now, it's going to be a little bit slow because we only have 2 milestones and there's not as much growth as that we can get. But it gets significantly stronger as we get more milestones. And then it eventually, around E250, it no longer is as strong, and you want to start using this only for idle. Just make sure that you keep swapping into exponents before you publish. Now that we're almost recovered, we should get ready to start doing everything into Q exponent or Q layers. And that's going to give us a very large boost in power because it will let us get our exponent or our layers as well. Okay. So I'm going to turn off auto buyer for just a moment and get all of this because I want to make sure that I can. So it's 850. I want to make sure I get to that point where I can get that. Okay. Then put everything into here and make sure I get the Q exponent and then turn this back on. Or the Q layer. And you can see Q is going to start getting really big really fast. And then now I can put everything into Q exponent. And your levels are kept even after you swap. Actually gonna I meant to do this a little bit. There we go. Now R is going to start growing. And even the values for R3 and R4 are kept when you swap as well. And let's go ahead and swap into Q exponent. And then back into Q layers. And now we're going to be doing, this is exactly how T or 1 milestone would work. 1 and 2 milestones would be identical here. Just remember you go layers with prioritization in Q into exponents with prioritization in Q, then layers with prioritization on R, then exponents with prioritization with Q, and then rinse and repeat that process. It's the same thing every time. And then you would just publish at something like E1000, E100, E1000, depending on what the sim says. And again, you can see what the sim, or you can check with the sim in the description down below. And into R exponent. And we'll go ahead and do one more swap, and then I'll show you what an example at E100 will look like. And you just keep rinsing and repeating this until you get to where you need to publish and continue. And I'll see you guys in just a moment. Alrighty, so now we're at E100. I started the recovery process already, but it shouldn't take us long. We'll just put everything into layers, and it should very quickly get to E100. Or E50, rather. Let's go ahead and take one out of each and put it into Q1. And then swap back into layers. And so now, since we have 4 milestones, we'll max out Q and then put one into R1. And see, it's significantly stronger at this point in the game. We'll go ahead and swap back to layers. And at this point in time, since you don't need to swap between Q and R exponents, it's fairly simple. But you just need to keep in mind that you want to max Q1 exponent every time and not R1 exponent. And then swap back into layers. The more you're in layers, the stronger Q1 and R1 will get. I'll go ahead and recover here, and then once I recover, I'll go ahead and show you an example at E175 would look like. Let's go ahead and swap into exponents. And then swap back into layers. What we want the swap into layers for at first is literally only just for the currency so that we can buy more layers, or swap into exponents so that we can buy more layers. We want the currency to buy more layers because layers gives us more Q and more R. And let's go ahead and swap into Q1. Let's swap back into layers. We only want to be in exponents for a little bit, remember? I want to be in layers as much as possible. The longer we're in layers, the more Q and R we get, the more we can boost. As you can see, it's significantly faster to recover compared to earlier at E50, and it just gets even faster from here. And again, you would just continue to push this until you got to the recovery that, or to the pub marker that the sim says, and you can always check what that what the sim says in the description down below. I'll now go ahead and show you a recovery at E175, and that should be everything until E250. So I will see you in just a moment. Alrighty, welcome back. And once this is at E175, we have to at this point, as you can see, we have enough milestones that we can flood over, and we will flood over into Q1. This is once you can max out the Q layers and the R layers, you will then flood into Q1 layers and then into R1 layers. And when you're in on the other side, when you have to put in milestones here, we're gonna go back to how we did it before, where one time once we'll put into Q3, and then after Q3 we'll put into R3, and then we'll bounce back and forth between those two. So I'll show you what that looks like now. Starting out in like this is also not bad, and now we can go over to layers. And since we can keep Q1 maxed all the time, we don't have to worry about that. We'll just pull from Q first, or from R first. Let's get that boost, and go ahead and swap back. And then we will go ahead and keep that for a little bit longer. Let's go ahead and swap into R1 again. Again, this time we're gonna leave the one milestone in R instead of in Q. Leave that for a little bit. Let's go ahead and swap back. Let's go ahead and swap back again. I'm sure you can get the gist of it now. Let's go ahead and swap back again. And back. And then one more time. That's pretty much the gist of it. As you can see now, the only time we actually get growth in row is when we swap into exponents. But while we're sitting here waiting and not actually pumping into exponents, our Q and R are getting significantly larger than they were before. So when we actually do put into exponents, they explode. Row will explode. And then I'll go ahead and recover here, and then I will go ahead and give you guys the end. At this point in time, the active starts to get worse. Past E175, it starts to slow down. E200, it's still good. E25, it's still E225, it's still good. But at E250, the active is not that great. And in fact, that's when we recommend that you use it for overnighting, because at that point you should have enough tau to get you to T3. So you should be using this to overnight, and for overnighting you would just put all of your exponents into layers, and then as everything else into or all of your milestones into layers, and then everything else into exponents, of course with Q1 being priority. And then you would when right before you publish, you would just dump whatever you have left or whatever you can into exponents, and then publish in the morning. So that's how you active with active T2. Uh, if you have any questions, you're always free to ask in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. Check the description, since it will have a lot of the materials that you might need for the guide or the sim or the Discord, on the Reddit. All of the other resources that are available will be in the description below. Feel free to give me a subscribe for more content like this, because I will be putting out more guides in the future, and if a like if you so wish. And thanks you guys for watching. I know this has been a longer video, but I hope it was worth your time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace.